Hail, hail, and welcome to the Temporary Stand podcast, and this is number 23 for the year. Back to basics today. Marty is hosting Richie and Conor as the lads look back over the past week of Celtic FC before looking on towards a massive match with Helsinki's. We're hoping you enjoy this effort, so nothing left to say. See you on the other side.
Okay folks, welcome to the Temporary Stand number 23. It's Sunday night, it is about 5 to 9. We're just settling down on a Sunday evening to have a good old chat about the yesterday, and tonight I'm joined by, all the way from North County Dublin, Conor. How are you, mate?
Not too bad.
And all the way from the border between Louth and Meath, Richie. How's it?
How you doing? Not bad, mate, thanks.
It seems like a right while since we spoke. I suppose it's been a couple of months since we've had the whole team together, so no doubt we'll have plenty to talk about this evening.
I took a good sabbatical.
You did? Where were you? What did you get up to? Apart from feeding your 3 children. And Jade and shady nabbies. Right, we'll play on and we'll gloss over the childhood related anecdotes and get right into the match. Second game of the season yesterday, Ross County away. Coming hot on the heels is the match on Tuesday, which we'll come back to later. But Richie, the team got a lot of criticism yesterday. What was your feeling about the match?
It was a bad performance, obviously. We started the game with no strikers, so I didn't expect, looking at the team, I didn't expect us to go and win 3 or 4-0. I put on a bet 2-0 because I saw that was the last 3 score lines, Celtic versus Ross County. But, Samaras up front, who I think everybody agrees now, even Lennon agrees, isn't a striker. And backed up by Commons, who is in a bit of form and obviously scored the equaliser. But it was a disappointing performance. It was a tight pitch. Ross County started well. The first 15 minutes, Celtic were slow at the traps as usual, which is worrying for Tuesday night maybe. But I suppose, from my point of view, I think Lennon, I know he was kind of hamstrung by injuries and stuff like that, but I don't see the reason why we played 3 central defenders in the first place. Thought we could have played 4 at the back, and Matthews and Izagiri could still have been bombing up and down, and that would have gave you an extra man up front. And that's what he did in the end. He swapped Tony Watt for Rustic, and at the end Tony Watt was spare and he was picked out, and that's how we got the goal. So it was a disappointing performance. I wouldn't go overboard about it coming up. Obviously some players could have made it yesterday who he didn't risk. Rodney was on the bench, and it was a tight park. Ross County were up for it, and it's the beginning of the season, so I'm not overly concerned about it. But I mean, the issues we have in general are still there, and we haven't bought anybody to remedy that.
Conor, all doom and gloom yesterday, or just one of those games?
Not doom and gloom. I think that's going too far. I think there's a few things. Richie's touched on most of the points that I jotted down before this. I suppose you have to remember the game on Tuesday night is foremost within the club's mind, and it's a high priority, obviously. So I think even the way that we set ourselves out in the first 15-20 minutes, we weren't going into tackles. We were a bit loose in our passing. And then you magnify that by the way Ross County started the game. They're very well organised, they were very sort of energetic, and they were well up for it in front of their home crowd. And as Richie said, it was a tight pitch. We were a little bit hamstrung by the injuries and who we could select, and I think all that sort of manifests itself into a disjointed performance. But the good thing is, Celtic stuck at it, and they stuck at it. They were creating chances even though they weren't really playing well. Number of chances off the crossbar, one off the post I think as well, a lot of sort of 6-yard sort of scrapping as well, so the pressure eventually told. I wouldn't go overboard. Second game of the season, and bigger fish to fry on Tuesday night. The only one thing I would say is that it may sort of, I think we've seen a lot more of these performances as the season goes on, where we sort of know now the pressure's not really there. to go out and ensure that we win these games, because if we need to put on a run, we'll put on a run. I don't think that it's the same pressure. We can sort of relax slightly in some of these games, and I think he was quite right. Don't risk players, and see how the young guys bring you along. I thought they did okay. Tony Watt did okay when he came on, as Richie said. He was the one that had the chance, and he took the shot well. That created the goal. But as far as I'm concerned, Tuesday night is where we need to be concentrating on, and I wouldn't really spend too much time criticising the team or tactics on Tuesday on Saturday past.
Richie, listening to Lennon's sort of post-match interview, he was, I suppose it was helped by the last minute goal, but he was very buoyant, and he had actually said that when he was asked if he was disappointed, he said no. He says because we had created a lot of chances, there was hit the post or the bar and things like that, and he said, I'd be more annoyed if those chances weren't coming. Is that the be all and end all, or really should we be cracking multiples of goals up against these types of games?
No, I don't think. I think that's a bit disrespectful to Ross County. I think you go up there and beat them 6-0. Celtic haven't won. The only team I can remember spanking last season away from home was a completely chaotic Hibs. So I didn't expect us to go up there and win 6 or 7-0. I don't think Lennon. I think he was being a bit. He was shining it up a wee bit. I don't think it was as good as that. But to be fair, we did have chances. Samaras should have had a hat trick. Technically, if it was Gary Hooper, he was expecting to score 2 of the 3 that Samaras missed. And we looked dangerous at set pieces, I suppose. We hit the bar, Charles Mulgrew hit the bar, and then Wanyama hit the bar, so that looked alright. But it wasn't a great performance. I don't think anybody could say otherwise, but obviously there's reasons for it. And
to me they seemed pretty well organised. They seemed to know what approach to take against us.
They were. I think it was quite a good build-up for Tuesday, because they were decent enough on the counter-attack. They play one up front, and they have the guy, the holding midfielder, whatever his name was, and then their back four wasn't great. Azagiri was walking past Ross Tokley, and that we didn't really take as much advantage as we could have. And like I say though, the reason I've come back to us playing 3 at the back, they only had the one guy up front, so I didn't see the reason to be having 3 guys covering the one striker, and none of those 3 go forward. And I noticed that Foster was building from the back quite a bit, but the distribution, especially from Charlie Mulgrew, who you'd come to expect, his passing was awful yesterday. I thought he had a bad game. Lustig, his passing was bad, and Kelvin Wilson, I can't remember what his passing was like, so obviously non-existent, aye. But maybe he knows his limitations, and he was passing to the nearest player. But Mulgrew and Lustig were trying fancy balls sometimes, and it just wasn't working. I was happy to see his building from the back, but like I say, I thought the 3 at the back was a waste of an attacking option.
Well, Conor, I suppose we'll come to you next night. You just preempted me, I suppose, about Kelvin Wilson there. What was your thoughts?
He did okay. I think the goal they got was unstoppable. It was a fantastic strike, and hats off to the guy. I thought he did okay, but he plays sort of a very simple game, but when that game sort of, as we talked about before, that game sort of disappears, then he's an absolute nightmare. But he didn't. I think he was okay. By his sort of non-performance, he had a good performance, if that makes sense. But I was going through the team. If you look at the players that were out, Hooper, Stokes, McCourt, Runga, Forrest, Brown, Key, I reckon if we had that selection to pick from on Saturday, you would have seen maybe us winning that game. Might have gone a goal behind, but I think you would have run out a little bit quicker. And I suppose add in Dylan McGoughtall as well. So there's quite substantial amount of players out at the moment. I wouldn't be worrying too much. I thought the performance was all right. Wasn't great, but I think we'd get these. I think the worry, I think we spoke very much towards the end of last season, was our ability to start the season really well and pumped up, and I suppose playing in your back of your mind is this a manifestation of the slow start, or is it sort of more of a sort of a considered approach to the game ahead on Tuesday, and not risking anybody and not trying to risk any injuries. And
But just to jump in on you there on that point, I had sort of been thinking about this from yesterday. Do we not always have a sort of a result like this early on in the season where, it's not the end of the world, but it's not a great result? And I go right back to the time when O'Neill was here. Do you remember Livingston came up that year? And I think we were held at Almond Vale pretty early in the season as well. In August, is that not just sort of early season settling in? Is that not sort of standard?
You started the season. You've played a number of games. We had the tour in Germany. Came back, played a few games at home. You played 2 games in the Champions League, and then you're flying away off to Philadelphia, and then you're flying back. The team they didn't seem settled. So I think that can be part of the reason. As we said before, I think, you'd nearly been the sort of high profile friendlies abroad. I don't think they're doing much for the club, but we don't seem to win them, and we don't seem to feel really strong teams we're only there for the money. But it seems to have an impact negatively on the squad when they come back. They seem sort of lethargic, or the team seem disjointed, and we do come back with more injuries than we went. So I think that does have an impact. But also, I think it was said before somewhere that the team have sat down together as a unit and talked about the importance of playing Champions League football. So I still think that was a big reason in our performance on Saturday. I thought even some of the 50-50 balls, you weren't even going for. There was one occasion, I think Wanyama never even bothered his ass even going near it. It just wasn't going to put his body on the line in that league game, knowing that if you really had to pull it out of the fire, we could, and which we did in the very last kick of the game. So Lennon's right, we didn't risk, we didn't come away with any injuries. It was a disjointed performance, but we stuck to the task, we got a point. Ultimately that's another point, and that's another game that we were unbeaten, and a successful league for me would be obviously retaining it, but to go this season unbeaten, which would be fantastic, So, once you don't lose early, and you can sort of pull the draw from the jaws of defeat, that's good enough for me at the moment,
And
for the moment, I'd have to say it, for the moment.
Yeah, but I mean,
it could be a different story on this day next week when we're talking again, But you're probably butting in there about Ross County. I thought they're very well organised. It was their home game. Their place looked really good, better than what you come to expect. The SPL have seemed to work really hard as a club to get themselves ready for the SPL. It was their big day in front of the camera, and fair play to them. They came away with a point, and they deserved it.
But not only that, again, going back to Lennon's post-match comments, he pointed out the fact that they've been on an incredible unbeaten run. They went more or less the whole calendar year, I think it is, without losing a game. Jerry Adams clearly has them, as you say, very well organised, very well ranked. Richie,
Jerry Adams.
Aye, Jerry Adams, that's what I call you. All he needs is a beard.
He runs a tight ship, alright.
He gets his soldiers well organised, that's what. But Wanyama, Richie, Conor commented there on Wanyama, who seemed to me to be having a particularly poor game. Is this a sign of the times or just a day off?
I don't know. He did give the ball away quite a bit, I suppose, but he did win most of his tackles. And he helped set up the goal. We put him up front, I'm assuming to pump high balls at him, but it ended up that he set up the goal. Well, helped set up the goal using his feet. It was a good pass out to Tony Watt, and got the goal. No, I don't think he was particularly bad. He wasn't his usual self. But the commentator on Sky said we were outfought and outthought. I mean, at 1-0 when everybody thought we were getting beat, that was completely over the top. We dominated that game. We dominated possession, shots, corners. Yeah, it would have been a lucky. It wouldn't have been. They would have earned a win, and I had given in. I thought we'd lost, and I almost felt sorry for Ross County when we scored that goal. But it would have been not a fluke, but it wouldn't have been a deserved win for Ross County. They would have deserved it in terms of effort and the effort they put in. But they wouldn't have deserved. They weren't the better team. We were the better team. We just couldn't finish it. But like I say. It's one of those games early season games where you can look at loads of games. I remember when Burnley came up, when Owen Coyle brought them up, they beat Man United 1-0. These things can happen at the beginning of the season. Just circumstances, injuries, big games coming up. So I wouldn't read too much into it. I haven't looked at the online reaction to the match. I haven't been online, so I don't know what it was.
Well, I can tell you, during the game yesterday, I was on Twitter and the huddle board, and it was absolutely scathing, and I couldn't really understand it. I couldn't have because I was doing something else at the time as well as watching the game. But I thought it was a vast overreaction. At this stage, as Conor pointed out, this is Ross County Scottish Cup final, up for it completely in front of their home squad, ready to go, and we had a full team of first team players that we couldn't pick.
Yeah.
And I had put it up on the when I saw the team yesterday. I put it up on the board that this will be a smash and grab today, and to me it proved exactly that. They came away.
I mean, it wasn't like Conor, it wasn't like Ross County had loads of chances. They scored a great goal, and they had that chance at the beginning where the guy missed a free header. It was a great cross in for the left. I don't remember them having and then at the end, we were putting guys forward. They had a couple, but that was just because we were pushing every man forward. But, it wasn't like they had great chances and Celtic were all over the shop.
I just
the game.
Fair play. It doesn't mean they put it up to us. I think nothing at all could have been done about their goal. It was an absolutely smasher of a free kick.
You can't go into a league campaign with a divine right that you're going to go and score 3 or 4 in every away game. Like there are going to be games throughout the season will completely frustrate you as a fan, and you'd feel like just walking away and not viewing anymore because it's so frustrating. But over the course of the season, I think it's a bit of an overreaction. I think you should be avoiding any sort of a hypersensitivity reaction to the start of the season. I think, for me, anyway, Tuesday's where it's at, and then the following leg is basically where we need to be concentrating and getting the focus right for that. The league will fall into place after that. As I say, if you can get into the Champions League and avoid being beaten in the league, then you have that sort of period then where you can sort of bed into the season, and then you can sort of level criticism as the season progresses. But not 2 games into the season for me.
No, fair enough. No, I would agree with that. Richie, just to pick you up then on the goal scorer, Chris Commons. What did you think of his game in general, apart from the goal?
I thought he was poor. I suppose if you're saying good things, he found a decent space, but I found myself increasingly watching him as the second half wore on, wishing James Forrest was playing. But I know, and I think Commons is a decent enough player, but I don't think he was great yesterday. But I suppose he was in a position where he is playing with Samaras, and neither of them are a Gary Hooper or a Stokes, where they want to be in the box and they want to be scoring goals. They can sniff them out. So Commons wasn't particularly impressive. None of them were particularly impressive. Aaron Matthews was his usual self, good. He never has a bad game as far as I'm concerned. Wanyama was poor. Kyle started decent and then fell away, but at least he was trying to get beyond the strikers and that kind of thing. I think he was instructed to do that. Ledley was okay. You're
at the stage now where you're really willing Kyle to score, aren't you? You just want him to get that goal to sort of push his game on.
Oh well, the guy can shoot. When he first started, I remember him having some absolute cracking shots, and obviously he got injured. But from my point of view, it was just great to see him start a game. It felt like he hasn't started a game in a couple of years. Just so long. I can't remember, and it's definitely great to have him back. But one thing I do want to talk about is just how different it is watching Celtic now, knowing that we're going to canter this league. Because on Saturday, you would have been, in the last 10 minutes, you'd have been going bananas because that's us dropped 2 points, or whatever, dropping 3 points, and that's the Rangers 3 points ahead of us. But it's a totally different way of thinking now, because we're going to canter the league. Let's face it, we'll win the league by, we should win the league by 15-20 points. So,
but is there any sort of feeling or hope? Not hope, I suppose hope's the wrong word, but is there any sort of a feeling where you'd actually quite like the league to be a wee bit tighter this year, to have a couple of teams jostling for it? I suppose to prove it wrong, that Celtic sort of won't be ahead of it. I mean, Dundee United had a fantastic result today, and already you're seeing the online chatter about, can they run us close this season and all that sort of thing. Is there anything in you that's kind of thinking you'd like more teams to put it up to us in the way that Ross County did?
Of course, definitely. You want to be tested. You want the league to mean something. You don't want it just to be a procession from August to May. But I don't think it's going to happen. Dundee United, I don't think they've signed any players have added to their squad from last season. So I mean, all these teams might go on runs, but they'll also go through they'll also be inconsistent, which Celtic generally won't be. We should win all our home games. These teams don't. And we'll get a lead. And I mean, we win our game, and we've had a poor start to the season. Win our game in hand, and we're top of the league. And when that happens, I don't see us getting knocked off.
Conor, I want to pick your brains. The whole sort of back end of last season, we had the ongoing debate about the lack of a number 10, and I think we're sort of realising that Chris Commons won't be the guy who fills that role because he's not in the game often enough. But Paul Barker made a great point on the Beyond the Waves after match programme, where he said that, look, the type of player that Commons is, to score that goal in the 94th minute, the 93rd, later on the 93rd minute, whatever it was, it actually marks him out as a top quality player because his concentration never dwindled, the whole length of the game. Has he got a point, or was he just really lucky?
He looked extremely frustrated and a little bit out of sorts yesterday, but I think that was sort of, again, it manifested itself throughout the team. But he was still there. He was still trying. I think Strachan and his analysis sort of pointed out, that he was coming much deeper for the ball and getting more involved. And when he did it, he was torn. He was trying to make it happen for himself. Do you know what I mean? But I think all players. I think I'd be expecting my players still to be taking chances in the last kick of the game, If any of my players were quitting well before that, then they shouldn't be on the pitch. So I think he was only doing what a professional footballer should be doing, is, playing right up until the whistle. As for number 10, I wouldn't have thought it would have helped yesterday on a tight pitch. You don't even think that's where they come into their own. Because you can at times just run into blind alleys when you're playing up against that type of defence. And the space is simply not there. I think it's in other games, maybe when you're at home, with a bigger pitch, that's when a number 10 can come into his zone or whatever, a bit more relaxed or whatever. I think it is too helter-skelter when you're playing these, when you're playing the likes of Ross County or in Inverness away from home. They're very hard to break down, and that's why we find these games extremely frustrating to win and to watch, because they're really in your faces. When teams sort of allow you to play a little bit, is that when you see Celtic's quality really coming to the fore. But I just expect all my players to play to the final whistle. I wouldn't say he was top class by any means on that performance yesterday. He just did what he had to do, I suppose, as a footballer. But it's good to see him taking the chance. That's two goals, albeit the first one against Aberdeen was down to the keeper. That one was sort of down to the keeper, but he's in the right place at the right time. So yeah, hats off to him, and it's good to see him getting confidence, because I still think he's an extremely valuable member of the squad. I don't know if he'll play as many games as he thinks he might when everybody's back fit, but he's definitely a very, very useful player to have in the team. Doesn't let you down, which is a good thing,
I would agree with Conor and Marty that number 10 wasn't the issue yesterday. The issue was having no striker on the pitch. Samaras had a couple of headed chances. We've spoken before about getting a striker in who can head the ball. Yeah. Samaras isn't it. And then the chance he had in the last 10 minutes where he could have just lashed it and he took 2 touches. Hooper or Stokes would have lashed that, and you think into the roof of the net, and that would have been it. So yesterday, I think the problem was having no striker on the pitch, and Conor's right at number 10. The tightness of the pitch and everything, I don't think would have made a great difference. Like a lot of people were talking about having Keys and Young playing. That might have made a difference, but I don't think it would have. I don't think it would have. Even though I like him, but I don't think that would have made a difference either. I think if we had Stokes or Hooper, both of them, or if we bought a striker, then even if Darryl Murphy was playing, you might have found that we might have scored a goal. But I think that was the main problem.
Well, Tony Watt, again coming off the bench and turning a game, should Tony Watt have been on from the start then?
Well, I think so, yeah. I think he should have been on instead of one of the 3 centre halves. I've already said that. So he should have started. I don't know why he never. Maybe he's young or whatever, I don't know. But I mean, he scored the 2 goals at Motherwell, and he's not going to play on Tuesday night, so he could have had 90 minutes. But when it went that way.
God love him, but the lad seems to have a persecution complex, because I saw him play at Cliftonville a couple of weeks ago, and he scored, and he was one of the few, very, very few players that day who actually put a shift in. And he was on Twitter that night giving himself pelters, and actually Anthony Stokes tweeted him and sort of told him to tighten up, as Conor would say. You've done well and you got a goal, and that's all that matters. So it's clearly Conor that the boy's a talent, isn't he?
Yeah, but again, it's hard when you don't see the sort of the reserve games, or they're not second string games, and you don't know what his record, you don't know what he's like, and then he comes in against Motherwell, makes a huge impression, and then he sort of features a little bit randomly after the end of the season. So it's a lot to ask a guy coming in. But as I said, towards the end of last season, on one of the podcasts. I think Lennon really he's got a unique opportunity now, which can serve the club really well in the future. If he feels he has a crop of young players that are there that he can trust and he thinks he can make something out, throwing one of them into a game like that actually would do more than giving them five appearances of 15-minute bursts. So that's the guy actually build up his confidence, whatever, and then he actually can sort of feel more part of the squad, and that's when his confidence starts to build or whatever, and you may get more out of him. And I think Lennon should be actually using that a lot more in the league. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we do progress into the group phase, and you sort of protect the players that are successful or a bit more amenable to picking up injuries, and you play the young guys to give them the confidence and to blood them into the team, and then you're reducing more players, you're churning them out or whatever. But why not give them 90 minutes? But maybe again, Lennon's sort of going, well, we'll go with what we have and we'll trust what we have, and only in panic situations will we try with some of these young lads to throw them on to give us a spark. I can't tell him how to do his job, but I'd certainly, would like to see at least one guy or one of the young lads get a performance, every other game, something like that, just to blood them through.
I think, I can see your point, but I don't think Tony Watt would have been involved yesterday if Hooper and Stokes, etc. had been fit. And, I think it was a real kick in the swingers for him. He's brought in last year, he could see himself having a breakthrough. But on the day we were playing Inter Milan, he was here in Belfast playing sort of an Irish league, a lower league side, really in terms of in football terms. So there could be aspects of that in it, maybe where Lennon's making sure that he stays grounded, or maybe he knows something about his personality that we don't. But surely exactly. if he keeps taking his chances like that, he'll be all right, won't he, Conor?
Should be, and all he can do is to try his best when he comes on. And I always think, young players when they come on, they really have to grasp it. And if they do grasp it, then you'll always see them being established in a team. It's as easy as that. If you come in and you've got a reputation, you don't really deliver, you sort of end up fading away. And we could count maybe 20 players that have sort of came through the Celtic youth teams into the first team squad, sort of burst on, and then we have never seen them ever again. So all the lad can do is when he gets a chance, take it, and he scored 2 goals against Motherwell. He's done really well yesterday in terms of, or again on Saturday, when he had his chance, and he as I said on the commentary, he took his time, he made sure he hit the target, and if you hit the target, then you never know what happens. And what happens was the goalkeeper spilled it, and Commons was there, so he can only do what he can do when he's on the pitch.
And Richie, just I suppose I don't want to let you off the hook about the midfield. We've got Wanyama, we've got Kayal, we've got Ledley. Have we got too many players of a similar type and standard, for the same positions?
Yeah, probably. You've got Wanyama and Kayal, who are essentially defensive midfielders, although I think Wanyama can do it all. He went up and he scored, he helped set up the goal. Last season in Motherwell, when we were struggling, he set up Tony Watt. So, he can do that. So maybe Lennon should he let Kayal loose in the first half, so maybe he should have let Wanyama in the second and see what he could do. They're definitely similar players. We talked about this last season when we were talking about a creative midfielder. They're similar. They're all similar players. None of them score a lot of goals. None of them are comfortable. Joe Ledley would be more comfortable getting beyond the strikers, and he never done that yesterday to any great extent. So they are quite similar. But like I say, yesterday we did create 3 or 4 chances that strikers would have taken, and then you suppose they would have made space that Samaras didn't make. It wasn't a game for Samaras yesterday. The tight pitch up front, it's pretty much a waste of a jersey at times. But I suppose the midfield, we spoke about it, we need a creative midfielder. We don't have one. So buy one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We'll be having this conversation, I think, for months on end as we go. Okay, I think that's fairly comprehensive on the match. We're going to draw the curtain down on this part of the podcast and move on to part 2, where we look ahead to Tuesday night's Champions League qualifier. Okay, part 2 of the podcast tonight. I suppose it's a very special week for any Celtic fan, where we attempt yet again to keep our club's place in Europe and stake a claim to get the entry into the money pot that is the Champions League. Richie, I'll start with you. Helsingborgs, what's your feeling for Tuesday?
I don't particularly have a feeling in terms of the result we're going to get. I just want us to not shoot ourselves in the foot. I want us to play a good, keep it tight, don't make any mistakes, 100% concentration from the whistle, and you'd expect us to beat them because we are a better team than them. Because they're Helsingborgs, they're playing a lot, they've got a lot smaller budget, they've got obviously a lower wage bill. We should be beating them. So if we do everything right and we don't make any daft mistakes and hand them goals and lose concentration, a la Utrecht, Sion, and the list is a long list of times where we've shot ourselves in the foot. Keep it tight, do the right things, the chances will come, take them, and we should win. Saturday just shows you what can happen. So you need to take your chances when you get them, and that's hopefully where we get Gary Hooper or Anthony Stokes back in, because if you get a chance on Tuesday night and it's George Samaras taking it, then you'd give him less than a 50-50 of taking it. So it's important to get those players back. But I mean, I'm worried, but particularly we'll see what happens. So winning Helsinki was good. The Europa League experience and playing away to Rennes, that kind of thing, should hold them in good stead. So bring it on.
As you say, miracles can happen. Samaras did score in the last round, so fingers crossed if he is given the jersey, he pulls his weight. Connor, just looking at the results from the weekend there, looks like Helsingborg lost to the league leaders at Elfsborg. I think they're sitting around 5th in the league.
They are, yeah.
We're not playing the cream of Swedish football. They're saying that ratbag Bedoya, God bless his car, and who scored for me in a 2-1 defeat. Is there anything that gives us cause for concern? Is there anything we should be panicking over, or should it be just all guns blazing? Typical Celtic Cavalier performance, or what's the approach?
The approach should be. I don't want to sound too negative, but I think experience has taught us over the last few seasons that, let's be honest, we can't trust the Celtic team away. Despite one or two sort of Europa League performances where we've done all right, but again, I just keep thinking back to some individual errors and mistakes, like the sort of zonal marking in Madrid, when we lost that goal after 120 seconds to Falcao, who hadn't scored in 17 games or something ridiculous like that after his big money move, to the likes of Sion, Braga, the Utrecht, embarrassing performances away from home, where you just get actually pummeled over, and they're not even getting beat, you get actually annihilated, and the performances are so disjointed, they don't even reflect the sort of club that you'd see week in, week out, performing domestically. So for that reason alone, I'd be extremely nervous about going into Tuesday's match. But then you sort of take a look at Helsingborg's, right? They haven't had a great season, but they're the only club in Swedish football history, I believe, to win the domestic treble last season. I sort of looked. They seemed to have lost one of their players to a club in Holland last week. Mm-hmm. He seemed to score a good few. Yeah. So I'm just looking through here. Their squad profile. They seem to have a very experienced midfield trio, all over 30, but experience seems to be gained in Norwegian or the Swedish leagues. Up front, they don't really seem to have anybody that I can see here that on paper seems to be prolific. So I think Henrik Larsson stated when he was asked for a review a couple of weeks ago when the draw was made, he just said they're extremely well organised, they don't give many goals away. That might suit us, because I think the key advantage for us is having the second leg at home. So if we can sort of go out with a game plan and keep it tight, and as Richard alluded to earlier on, is just cut out the silly mistakes, just concentrate, get over the first 15 minutes of a game, quieten the crowd down and start playing our way into it. I think we do have the players that can catch them on the break. I think it did prove in Helsinki, where we were a wee bit ropey on one or two occasions, but we saw it out, and we saw it out well, because when they were coming forward, we were able to use Samaras really well, and that's his key strength away from home, is to hit on the break and use his rangy physique to sort of get in behind them and stretch them. And Ledley, even in that game, was bombing into the box and providing that extra little bit of support. And I suppose if we do have one or two players back, it should give us that confidence, at least not to lose the game. I think that's the key, not to lose the game, not to give any goals away. And if we can get back even with a 1-1 or a 0-0 draw back to Parkhead, then I think we should have enough in the locker to see it through. But yeah, it's going to be a big game on Tuesday night, and it means a hell of a lot to the club. So, and it means a hell of a lot to the Celtic supporters, because we've already stated in the first part of the podcast when we're talking about the game, we are going to win the league at a canter, and it could, if we put down a run together, the league could be over by Christmas, and that's the sad truth of the matter. So you really need to have that interest. You need to make sure that we have the big games midweek, and we keep the support going, and we keep the momentum going as well. And I suppose it has a knock-on effect as well, that if you see through the two legs that you're not having to sell any players, and potentially Lawwell might get the sellotape off the biscuit tin and give us a number 10 and a defender that we're craving for.
Oh, fair enough. A very comprehensive roundup there. Boy, Richie, you've went to JD Sports or whatever, you've bought yourself your fluorescent tracksuit, you've dyed your hair ginger, and you're walking into the dressing room. You are Neil Lennon. What do you say to the players before the game on Tuesday?
What do I say to the players? Just do the basics right. That's what we haven't done in Europe. We haven't done the things that we do every Saturday in the SPL generally. So 100% concentration. I want them to pick the right team. I want them to bring in Rogner for Wilson and play four at the back. And I want them to play, a solid four in midfield. Obviously Wanyama's it, so you want Kaya, Ledley, Forrest, I suppose Brown, although I'm not a big fan of Brown, but Lennon is, so he'll play, and then I'd say Samaras off Hooper, or Stokes and Hooper. I want him to play the right team. I don't want him to tinker. I don't want him to play three at the back. I don't want him to do anything that he doesn't normally do. I want him to pretend he's playing Dundee United and play it that way. Play against a team we know we're better than, but also that we need to put in the hard work and give them anything easy that will get them their confidence up. Because they're going to a game playing Celtic. They have respect for us, obviously, so we should impose ourselves on them from the beginning, and then take it from there. We shouldn't be scared of them. Helsingborgs, for God's sake, they're not. I don't care if they won the Swedish treble. They signed Bedoya, and their star striker went for 500 grand. That's how good they are.
Yeah, but this is the thing. We slip into this mode where it's just that, like, it was just Sion, it was just Utrecht, it was just Braga, teams that we didn't know a hell of a lot about, but absolutely spanked us. Absolutely tore us apart and humbled us. So that's where we are. The sad reality is, over the last two seasons, and I don't care how this sounds, is that we haven't proven to be a team that can go away in Europe and pull out a performance. And forget about Helsinki. Forget about that's like actually playing St Patrick's Athletic. No disrespect to them. You'd be expecting to beat Helsinki. And they gave us a few scares away, but we've seen it out professionally. But we're up a level here again, so we just have to err on the side of caution. Just I suppose just keep it tight. Try and see the game out and get it back to Parkhead with a big crowd behind us on a European night, and I think then it'll see the guys home. The last time I think we got through on the playoff, this qualifier was against Spartak Moscow, and we drew 1-1 away. I think Scott McDonald scored. Was that correct?
Hardly.
It was Hartley, sorry, it was Hartley, and it was Zaluska in goals, and he had isn't that correct? And he had it wasn't Zaluska, it was Mark Brown, wasn't it? Out in Moscow, and he was okay. And then when we came back to Parkhead, it was 1-1, and we seen it through in penalties. So, and Spartak Moscow obviously will be up another couple of levels from Helsingborg. So my big thing on Tuesday night is, as Richard said, concentration, and don't do anything stupid.
Richie, to bring you back in there, you mentioned Rodney as being an important player. He was on the bench yesterday, so clearly I think Lennon, knowing his ridiculous injury record, was probably just mothballing him for the big game.
Hopefully, that's what we'll hope for, and that's what I thought happened. As soon as I saw he wasn't playing, I was kind of glad, because the guy's got a reputation for getting injured. But hopefully, talking about injuries, the amount of injuries we've got this season is a bit of a joke. The amount of strains and stuff like that we're getting. So I meant to mention that earlier on. There's something going wrong at Lennoxtown. Because this early in the season, with the amount of injuries we've got, a lot of them seems to be strains.
Well, there was two, just to stop you there, because there was two aspects to this season that I think are odd. One was obviously the travelling for the Real Madrid game, which wouldn't have helped anyone sitting for that amount of time on a plane, going both ways over the space of about 3-4 days. But also the plastic pitch in the last round. Do you think these are having an effect, or is it just something more general, something that's happening in training that they should be doing that they shouldn't be doing, or what's your thoughts?
No, I think there's something wrong with the training regime at Celtic, personally. I spoke last season about Rodney constantly getting injured, the one that looking after him properly. And then at the beginning, I think maybe the players have been worked too hard. Because, I remember them saying the amount of running they were doing, and I think they've been overtrained, and that's led to some of them picking up strains and stuff like that. So, that has to be looked at. But, it's done now, so we just have to get on with it. But, I'm looking at Twitter here, Marty, you'll be glad to see that Swansea City launched $5 million bid for Ki Sung-young. That's from Duncan Castles of the Sunday Times, who's usually
I heard it yesterday, or I heard it earlier today. I heard that there was a bid in that was on Sky Sports News this morning.
He was playing with Kyle Bartley.
Yeah, Jesus. Yeah, what a double act. I don't know who's worse. Anyway, I don't want to get into Key here at all. I'm not here to pick on Celtic players and thank them. But I suppose too, if Key's going to be moving for 5 or 6 million, we're going to be making money on him. What we paid for him, I think it was about $2.5 million, wasn't it? We paid his team in Korea.
We paid 2.5, so that'll be 2.5 profit. But if you're hearing rumours,
if it's 5 million Swansea are offering, you can tell them to go on boat. They're after selling the guy Joe Allen to Liverpool for 15 million. So listen, we not, Lawless needs to get the finger out here on this one and go, just set a price for the guy, even if it's overinflated for his worth. Just set it, because English clubs, or Welsh club in this instance, playing in the Premier League, they have money to burn. Listen, 5 million going, I can't curse on this, but seriously, 5 million. I know where you're coming from, Marty. You don't like the guy, that's fair enough. But he played in the Olympics, he played really well. The guy's got a great range of passing. He do really well in a team that like to play passing football. He's a bit more relaxed, and the pressure mightn't be on him as much with a team like Swansea. But they've got money to burn, so up it a little bit. I'd be quite, say it's 7 million. Even if you're looking for 2 million more, say it's 7 million and see if they come back in. We don't have to sell yet, or maybe we do, but 5 million to me seems slightly low for a guy who's a really good age. He's still only 23, seasoned internationalist. Markability, everything that you throw into that. So it's 5 million, maybe add-ons as well. But if you're just accepting 5 million, I think you're sort of shooting yourself in the foot.
Well, obviously,
because I was going to come back to the transfers. We were going to do a separate section, but I suppose so we may as well just keep going now then. Yeah. I suppose, Richie, you wanted to come in and add something out of what Conor was saying?
I was just going to agree with Conor, because if Key would be a direct replacement for Joe Allen, he was the same sort of player. You probably wouldn't like him, Marty, because he plays a lot of sideways and backward passes, and he's went for 15 million. Key's a better player than him. He's got a better CV, and they're trying to buy him for a third of what they sold the Liverpool. So I agree, no chance. 7.5.
But hang on. Does Key have a better CV?
Of course he does. He's international.
I think it doesn't matter. Look around you today at players who are getting capped left, right, and centre, who 20 years ago would never have got the international team. And I'm genuinely not picking on Key here, because there's tons of players like him. So what if he's an international? So what if he got young player, Korean player of the year? He hasn't stood out in a Celtic team playing in Scotland. And he's going 100 miles, how far away is Wales from Glasgow? 200 miles down the road. So to me, I think 5 million is a fair price for him. I don't think he's ever stood out for us. He's got a couple of half decent bang down goals, fair play to him. But he's never created enough. He's never got enough runs in the team. He's not a first team choice. I think Law's done all right here. Am I wrong?
You're wrong. Yeah. That's assuming we accept 5 million. I totally disagree with you on Keys. So I think he also does have a better CV than Joe Allen, who's one season in the Premiership, a decent season, playing a certain type of football that.
At a much higher level than Key.
A much higher lelevel than Key, but he plays in a team. Well, that doesn't prevent Marty. Obviously, you have a pre-agenda about Key that you have.
No.
About 18 months, 2 years.
The problem with the debate on Key is everybody just assumes that I have an agenda about him, but I don't. I'm looking at this in the cold light of day. We bought him for 2.5 million, and we're doubling our money on him. To me, that's a damn good deal for a player who doesn't get a start in our team when he's fit.
Well, that's fine, Marty, but you're asking asking the questions and you're interrupting. I don't agree with you on Key. I think he's a good player, and he would do well in a Swansea team. I don't think he would do well in certain other English teams the same way he isn't fitting in at Celtic, particularly because for whatever reason. But I wouldn't agree that he hasn't stand out. A lot of people whose opinion I would respect think he's a good player and we should keep him. And I think we should keep him because of the reasons we talked about before in the past, that we don't spend the money we get anyway. So what's the point? We may as well keep our good players, instead of just selling them and then buying second raters. So
you're already hearing sort of noises being filtered out from the club through various channels this week, sort of preparing the ground, I think, for a very disappointing set of financial results.
Yeah.
So 5 million into the kitty before you qualify for the Champions League, I think, again, isn't a bad day's business from the men in suits. So.
Yeah, the men in suits, but I'm not a man in a suit. I'm a man with a scarf, and I don't care if it fill in a 5 million black hole. I want to keep our good players, and Peter Lawwell it's his job to keep the club on a good footing. It doesn't matter to me if we lose Key and put am I supposed to care that we sell Key and then bank the money? That's no interest to me. I want us to sell Key and use the 5 million to buy 2 players, but we won't do that.
Absolutely. Conor, what's your thoughts?
On Key or the
wider transfer, on the situation in general.
So the first thing we need to take into consideration, you mentioned something about financial results. Peter Lawwell, when the Rangers debacle was going on, said that we didn't need them, that we would stand up on our own, we had our own business plan, we might suffer a bit. So the fact that they're leaking out stuff like, prepare yourselves for a bad set of financial results is quite ironic and not too dissimilar to incumbent governments here in Ireland preparing the population for a really severe budget. So I think that's pathetic from Peter Lawwell's side. I also think the opportunity should have been grasped by both hands to say, listen, okay, the league's going to be the league's there, we're going to win that. The things that we haven't done under Neil Lennon is qualify for the Champions League, and the best way to do that is to support the guy. Now, you can be very honest in a transfer policy, and you weigh up and you sit down and you go, listen, I can do this player, I can't do that player, but you make sure that you have your targets, you identify them and bring them through. Seems like we're playing a really, really elite game of brinkmanship here, is that we're banking on the Helsingborg game and maybe one player leaving before we'd actually go and spend something. So you're really, really, the window then to bring somebody in, it's quite small. It's notoriously hard, as we keep hearing, to do business, right at the last day if you haven't done some sort of preparatory work beforehand. So what I'm talking about here is Marcus Henriksen. So obviously he's a key target that Lennon wants to bring in, okay? So allegedly we went in with an £800,000 bid, so they're preparing the work, but it seems to me that they're playing this brinkmanship. We need to qualify for the Champions League before we get him. I'd say Lennon's been told Champions League and you'll get maybe one player or 2 players. But going back to the key thing, you really have to remember, I think, we've talked about it and we've argued about it. Guys got technical ability. The three of us, we're not experts, we're football fans. We let the experts decide. A lot of people that you'd respect in the game say that the guy's got technical ability, so he's got a sell-on value. There's clubs in Russia looking to buy him. It's technical league. They sort of like players like that. So, they see something in him as well. And there's been clubs down south, have mooted interest in him as well. Okay?
Well then, just to stop you on that then, because obviously Lennon is one of those people who would say, well, has a better knowledge than me and Richie. Why doesn't Lennon play him?
Maybe it's the quality of the league, and sometimes the quality of the opposition in Scotland doesn't dictate that his skills are appropriate for a game. But I don't want to concentrate on why we, as fans, think he's a good player for Celtic or not a good player for Celtic. Deal with the thing in hand at the moment. If the guy's got technical ability, he's got a resale value, okay, and it's good business. I do agree. We are a selling club, and that's where we're at. Mm-hmm. The guy's 23. Swansea have put in allegedly a 5 million bid. That's derisory, in my opinion. They've sold a player of unproven ability to Liverpool because their new manager had him for a couple of seasons in the Championship, which would probably be equivalent to the SPL, and 1 season in the Premier League, and he's gone for 15 million. So for me that doesn't stack up. You just prove a case in point. Jelic went to Everton for what? For 6 million, was it allegedly, whatever it was? And he was a success straight away. So it doesn't matter if he's coming from Celtic to Swansea and they're bidding 5 million. I think I think we should be setting our stall out in around the 7 million mark. And we're getting that, then you're sort of going, well, listen, you've paid the transfer fee, you've paid the wages, and you've a bit in the bank for this. You have a bit in the bank. Yeah, if need be then, and you're working to a tight budget, but make sure that, if Lennon is agreeing to sell the guy, that he gets the player that he wants in to replace him. That guy seems to be Marcus Henriksen. Don't know a lot about him. Maybe other people would know more about that guy. Is he this sort of coveted playmaker, schemer that we want? And if it is, and Lennon's been promised that, and Key has to go, and we get him at the right price, then he has to go. And I think that's the reality that we live in. But we should be a bit more upfront and a bit more ballsy about our approach to English clubs. Like, we should set a value on a club. If it's unrealistic, it's unrealistic. They'll come back in at a lower bid, and we'll settle to what we see, in the background. But like saying that a guy's worth 5 million, and then having this whole clamour around fans saying, well, he's not worth 5, he's worth 7, or he's worth 7, he's worth 10. The club should just go out and say, he's a player we don't want to lose, but we think he's worth 8 million, and if you want to start the bidding there, then we're interested. It's as simple as that. Then you'll see who the real takers are.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't say much for Marcus Henriksen, I think. Sorry, Marty, I don't think it says much for Marcus Henriksen that, we've bid 800 grand for him. We're sitting on our thumbs waiting to get through the Champions League, and we'll come back in for you, and nobody else is touching the guy. I mean, you think somebody could just... Helsingborgs have sold they lost their best striker because they dilly-dallied and Herenveen and got money from Liverpool and come in and bought a guy. I mean, that doesn't seem to have happened yet with Henriksen, so I'd be doubtful about how good the guy is, and we're all getting excited. We're not excited, but he's our one hope so I'm definitely not excited about any transfers that might be coming in. If he's the best we're going to be getting, a guy that nobody else seems to be that interested in at a very low price, then how good can the guy be, really? So, I mean, it's not depressing because we're used to the way, Celtic's policy, and I suppose the Rangers...
Celtic's policy was what I was about to actually ask you about, because Conor raised the issue that Lowell said we have an independent policy financially that we can stand up on our feet. Does that policy not include selling players like Key, who maybe aren't sort of, in the midst of the first team operation, but we can cash in on for some sort of return? Is that not what it's about?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I don't go buy into the standalone policy. We don't have a standalone policy. Our policy was based partially on Rangers and the Old Firm. Well, let's face facts. I mean, we might say none of us like the Old Firm tag or whatever, but it was based on it, joint sponsorships, all kind of things, and it's all went down the pan now. So that's the reason why we're talking about. I saw Eddie Pearson saying that he heard that we were doing 5 million. So that's all to do with having no Rangers. But I definitely agree. We're in a tiny league. We've got to buy low and sell high.
Mm-hmm.
But you also want them to reinvest the money, but they don't always do that. We sell players for decent money, and then we buy rubbish. Sometimes, we buy the players we bought the last couple of seasons have been low money. I mean, we must have offered Joe Ledley a decent contract, which is fair enough. But I mean, we sold McGeady for 10. We've sold other players for a decent amount of money, and we rarely reinvest a whole lot, unless you want to count youth development as reinvesting. And I suppose in a couple of years, if we bear the fruits of that, then that's fair enough. But like I say, selling Key is all well and good, and I agree that if you get 6-7 million for him, and you bought 2 players for 2 million, then that's fine. But that's not what's going to happen. We're going to sell Key. You'll buy Henriksen. You'll buy somebody from the Championship, or you'll get a loan, and that'll be it. And you'll say, what's the point? I don't understand why Celtic supporters get so excited about selling players for big money when we don't see it on the team on a Saturday. It doesn't excite me.
Well, we don't need any more Mo Banguras, that's for sure. Right, well, we'll spend about 20 minutes talking about Key and the transfer and all that stuff, but Celtic are liable to come out tomorrow and say he's not for sale. No, our luck. So I suppose we're on a watching brief with our transfers and ins and outs are going to go over the next couple of weeks. Just the two of you, Conor, starting with you. Is there anybody you think Celtic should be going for?
He's getting back. I still think we need a schemer of sorts. And as we said, I think myself, Richard, and yourself, we don't know much about this Henriksen guy, so we don't know how good he is. So it's not the type of player we need. But we also need somebody that's got a physical ability in the box to cause trouble. It's as simple as that. Somebody can bury a head or whatever. Now, I had a good laugh to myself last week when I seen on Twitter that we were linked with the big Bean pole from Serbia, who's playing down in Birmingham. Yeah, and I got derided here, I think, a number of months ago for mentioning his name, so I thought that was quite ironic that he was mentioned in those terms. I can't believe that guy's on 60 grand a week down in Championship football. It's just crazy. So it goes to show you what you're competing against. He's probably not the answer, but we do need to unearth somebody that can basically, has got a bit of power and pace. My fear, as Richard alludes to, like, you'll sell Key and you end up with John Daly. That's the Celtic way. I don't agree with it, but you'd be hoping that we're going to be a little bit if Key does go or a key player goes, pardon the pun, you'd like to see a bit of creativity in the transfer market. That we've got a couple of players lined up to fill those problematic positions. Now, I also thought that Kelvin Wilson was on his way out, but obviously with the injuries and stuff, he doesn't seem to be. But transfers are funny. The last week's always very hectic, and we seem to do a bit of business on the last day of seasons anyway, with players going out either on loan. Josh Thompson's gone again to Portsmouth, I think, last week. To watch and brief, nothing much is happening. I'll just go back to the fact that I think it's all hinging on Helsingborg and maybe selling a player, and if that if Helsingborg works out in our favour, you might see a bit more. You might see a lot of movement with a couple of players coming in and some going out.
Richie, any ideas?
I agree. We need a centre forward who can head the ball, who can not put himself about in a John Daly way, because I'd rather have Darryl Murphy than John Daly any day of the week. And I saw people talking about Johnny Russell as well today, which is depressing to me that people think he's good enough for Celtic. But we need a striker who can, head the ball. Something a wee bit different, but I mean, not a Beanpole Zigic. I mean, I did see that. It was me that derided you, Conor. You probably remember that. But,
yeah.
But I think it was inevitable that we get linked with a guy who's unwanted in the Championship. That seems to be what happens to us. But we need a striker.
But
we need a centre half.
To stop you there, Richie, and to go back on Zigic, we were in for Zigic. Strachan was trying to ban him, isn't that right, at the time?
It probably was, yeah, but I mean, it's not a guy that
I'm pretty sure. He could have been here.
He could have been, and we'll see how they're done. I would think he would have been I'll put my money on him, he would have been a disaster, but who knows.
But when I say John Daly, Richard, it's not that a player that I'm advocating that we should go out and get. I just think it's the Celtic way. Like, you want to go out and buy a creative midfielder and you end up with Willow Flood.
Oh no, I agree.
That's the way we seem to. But that's the way we've been doing our business over the last 4 or 5 seasons. So, you're sort of nearly already expecting that when you really hope that you might be a bit creative and end up with like a Viduka, somebody who you haven't heard of before but comes in and does a great job, and then you can he had a resale value as well. So these players you need to put in a lot of work scouting, and then you need to put in a lot of prep work and trying to get them over. And as I say, the longer you leave it in August, the less likely you'll get these players in, and the more likely you'll end up with a John Daly type figure where you just throw Dundee United $1 million for the sake of throwing $1 million to get a player in. It's not the right way to do it, but it's slightly depressing. But you just be hoping in the background we've done a little bit more than that, and we've maybe 1 or 2 things lined up. But you can get transfers over the line pretty quickly. What was that guy that we got from Ukraine last season, the fullback who scored the goal at Ibrox? I forget his name. He's a distant memory now.
We're looking to get him at the door quick enough.
Exactly.
He was one on a bit.
But you can turn loan. See, that's the type of thing. On the last day of the season, you'd end up with anything. So, just hopefully we've done a little bit of prep work, and we may have 1 or 2 signings lined up. But I wouldn't be getting too excited.
No. Anyway, let's end it there. Let's shut the barn door before the horse bolts. We've still got a couple of weeks to go, and fingers crossed for a good result on Tuesday night. A nice 3-0 win will be lovely to come back home with.
0-0. That'll do me.
Yeah. No. Aim high, Conor. Aim high. So no problems, lads. We're going to pull this together now. I'll finish up just by thanking you. Thanks very much, Richie, this evening.
No bother, mate. All the best.
And Conor, God bless you. And
I feel great after my first season run out there. I could go another 90 minutes. I
think I pulled my hamstring.
Did you? Well, Thomas Rugney and Gary Hooper here with me tonight. Well done, boys.
I'm ready to get my ice packs.
Right, lads, good night and God bless, and to everyone, thanks a million from the Temporary Stand.
Cheers. Good night.
That's us for another edition. Hope you enjoyed that, and I hope Richie and Marty have made up for next week. As always, we appreciate any feedback on this or any other podcast we've done, and you can get us on Twitter. It's @TemporaryStand, on the email at temporarystand@hailhailmedia.com, and the usual message boards. Keep listening to all the podcasts on the Hail Hail Media group, as we always appreciate your support. So thanks for taking your time to download this. Good night, God bless, Hail Hail.